Hey everybody, it's me, John Ward, and I am back with another Dark Park Film Reviews. And this is the first video of 2024. So thank you for joining me and Happy New Year to everybody. I am going to be trying to get at least one video out a week. I want to get back into that. And this is one that I've wanted to do for a while, since last year. And that is, why did Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 or Mission Impossible 7 fail, basically, or bombed, which I don't like to use, but why did it fail? And I want to put out there some of my theories. I want to look at uh other films that have like a part one and a part two, and I don't mean something like Friday the 13th part six or Friday the 13th part seven. I mean, like, it's just one big movie that's divided in half, so part one and part two, kind of like what Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is, because Part 2 was supposed to come out this year, and it's not, because the film just failed, even though it got very positive reviews from, critics and just, the general public. It just didn't catch on. And I find that to be very disappointing. Most of you know that I am a big Tom Cruise fan. I got my DVDs right here of Cruise. Over here's Nicolas Cage, who's my second favorite. But there's going to be more Tom Cruise videos coming down the road, showing off my collection and stuff. So I just want to share that with you because I have so much. But just, why did this not do well? And I think some of it might have to do with the just kind of overhyping it, that they were probably trying to go off of Top Gun Maverick, and it just didn't work. So that motorcycle, jump that we saw, 10,000 times, I don't think helped things any. I think that it probably made people bored after a while. That is, as awesome as it is that Cruise does his own stunts, that people just got tired of seeing it. And um, I think that there were at least three trailers, and I know that I was excited after seeing the first trailer, and then the second trailer I was a little more iffy, um, and I don't remember much about the third trailer. But when I went to go see it, I saw it on a Monday, and it was called a fan preview. And when we left, they gave us a like an 11 by 17 size poster, which was pretty cool, and like a pin. And which is basically the reason why I went on Monday. And I didn't enjoy the film that much. I liked it, but I think it was the sound in the theater. And when the place that was showing it, the I don't know what they were trying to do, but the speakers were so loud that it just made it not a really fun experience, because the theater was not made to do that. It's not like the seats moved back and forth or vibrated. It's just like they just played it loud, and it just kind of came out distorted. And so I liked it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought that I would. Then I went to go see it on Thursday at a different theater and really enjoyed it. I really liked it. Um, uh, and I thought, okay, this is easily going to make $1 billion, and it didn't. So, um, I don't know why it didn't click with audiences, really. I mean, like I said, I have my theories and stuff, and we're going to be looking at a few things, but it's, I don't know, maybe because we had Indiana Jones and that Dial of Destiny that bombed too right before it, and then you had right after it Barbenheimer, which just dominated, as we know. And Barbie made over $1 billion, and Oppenheimer made a lot more money than what they thought that it was going to make. The person who put that ad campaign together, the marketing, uh, like, should be promoted if they weren't. I mean, that was brilliant, since they're even two different companies. But then you also had uh, the surprise hit of Sound of Freedom, which I don't think anybody, thought would make money, and it did. It made a lot of money. And so you had like Indiana Jones, then you had Sound of Freedom, and then Mission Impossible 7, and then Barbenheimer. One of the problems also, and Tom Cruise got really mad about this, is that Christopher Nolan has a deal set up with IMAX. He now shoots all of his films at IMAX, and they all play in IMAX. And Cruise was expecting for Mission Impossible 7 to be shown a lot longer than 2 weeks, I believe it was, on IMAX screens. And it didn't. They IMAX had to pull all the Mission Impossibles to put, Oppenheimer in. And from what I understand, like Tom Cruise personally like called movie theaters to say, please do not remove the movie. He tried to stop it, and some of that might have to do with it failing. I think that maybe the length of the film, of it almost being 3 hours, had something to do with it. The other ones might have been over 2 hours, but they weren't close to almost 3 hours. The Also, it being a part one, I think, has a problem uh, with people just not wanting part one and part two anymore, even though they seem to still be doing that. I think that with the film's length, that people didn't want to go see a part one and then have to go back and see a part two. Because the film just really underperformed and lost money for Paramount, uh, they've now pushed Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2, if that's still its title, and to 2025. And which is really disappointing, as I was looking forward to seeing it. It's also a pretty convoluted plot, where a lot of the other Mission Impossible movies are, bad guy wants to blow up world, and Tom Cruise and gang have to stop the bad guy. And this is AI is the main villain. I also think people got tired of hearing about AI, just on the internet, in movies, in articles. They were just tired of AI. And that was another thing. Uh, Also, because of COVID, uh, the film got shut down twice because it was made now 3 years ago, even though it came out last year. Some people were talking about, well, why does Tom Cruise look different from like the trailers to what he looks like now? And that's because he aged 2 years. The film should have been out in like 2021, I think, and then it came out in 2023 because of all of the COVID problems and all that. It also ended up being one of the most expensive movies ever made. And so it had to make, and we're going to look into this, it had to make a ton of money to just break even. And the other Mission Impossible movies did not cost nearly as much. And another thing I think is Mission Impossible Fallout is considered to be the best Mission Impossible movie, hands down. And it is, in my opinion, it is. If part two is considered to be the worst, even though it's still entertaining and I still like it, I can watch it, but if it's considered to be the worst, then Fallout is by far the best. And a lot of that has to do with, Christopher, McQuarrie. And it was just incredibly solid. They just nailed it. And everything in that film it's pretty much a perfect movie. And it's going to be hard to surpass that. So you have like Mission Impossible 1 through 3 are like its own trilogy. And then you have Mission Impossible, like Ghost Protocol. You have oh God, I can't believe I'm blanking Ghost Protocol, and then you have Rogue Nation. There we go. And then you have Fallout. That's kind of its own trilogy, and because that's when the series really changed. And then you have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part One, which is kind of its own thing, maybe along with part two of that. It does look different. It also has one of my favorite soundtracks too. I absolutely love the soundtrack to Part Seven, but it's hard to. And I brought a couple of my Blu-rays up. So when you're looking at something like Fallout, which like I said, it made the most money out of all of the Mission Impossible movies, and you're going to have to somehow outdo it. And so what I want to look at is we're going to look at numbers and stuff for Fallout. And then we're also going to take a look at also Top Gun Maverick. So why did Top Gun Maverick do so well? This was the odd movie out. And then we'll look a little bit more at, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part One. So looking at these, because Ghost Protocol made a lot of money, Rogue Nation did not. And then they brought out, I mean, it still made money, but not as much as Ghost Protocol. And then Fallout came out, and that just clicked for some reason with people. So if we look at something like, as I brought this stuff up here, so something like Mission Impossible Fallout, its budget was somewhere between 178 to 180 million. Its running time is 147 minutes. Its box office, it was 791.1 million. That film made a lot of money. And so of course, pretty much Tom Cruise could do what he wants. And so Paramount is also Top Gun. So Mission Impossible Paramount, Top Gun Paramount. So he finally wants to do his Top Gun Maverick film. I don't know. I think Rogue Nation is one of the best ones in the series. It's got one of the greatest motorcycle sequences ever. And you could tell that's Tom Cruise on there because he's not wearing a helmet. And his knee and his foot, I mean, hits like almost to the ground like that. I mean, it's like scary. I did see it in the theater, but I didn't see it IMAX, so I can only imagine what that must have looked like with his knee or foot almost hitting the pavement as he's going like 70 miles an hour. But that one, like I said, it didn't do as well, but it still made money. So something clicked with Fallout, and it just and people just really liked it. Maybe it was Henry Cavill. I don't know, kind of, doing his his cocking of the fists, and which is probably the best thing in the whole movie. I've heard that he's tried to do it on talk shows and he can't do it as well. It was just one of those things that just works. And it's great. Makes me smile every time I see it. So then Top Gun, 80s movie, one of those things that you think of maybe with Pretty in Pink or The Breakfast Club or, I don't know, Commando, something like that. And it's very 80s. It's very music heavy. It's very MTV like. A lot of guys with shirts off, and big hit, of course. So when Cruise announced that he was going to be doing Top Gun Maverick, people went, why? Why? There's no reason to do a sequel. It's something we didn't ask for. We don't need it. This is pointless. This is a pointless sequel. Why? Why are we doing this? And I think that's why the film is such a huge hit. I think that because people just thought it was going to be crap, a few people went to see it. they told people, this is really good. This is the movie we need right now. And then they told friends who told friends who told friends. And soon enough, the movie's getting, sold out shows, and it's huge just because of word of mouth. And it is the film that we needed at that moment. It's basically Star Wars, it's A New Hope, and it still worked. It absolutely worked. And that, I mean, this kind of follows the same budget as Fallout. So its budget is 170 to 177 million. Its running time is 130 minutes, but it made 1.5 billion. It's the highest grossing Tom Cruise movie, and it's the highest grossing movie for Paramount. This thing did huge. And it was nominated for like best sound and some other things. So I think with Dead Reckoning, they were Paramount, Tom Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie, all of that they were basically thinking, okay, people love Tom Cruise. Maverick was a hit, which means Mission Impossible will be a hit. Fallout was huge. We got this in the bank. This is no problem at all. So then, with all the problems that Dead Reckoning had, it says on here, Variety reports that given the film's massive budget, which I'll tell you in a second, it would likely not return a profit during its theatrical run. Later estimating that it would lose the studio, Paramount, 100 million if it did not cross 600 million worldwide. Now, you also got to think of, and it does say here, the film was described as a box office disappointment. The thing with Top Gun Maverick is it didn't play in China. Hollywood bows to China. They take a knee to China. And on Tom Cruise's jacket that was from the first Top Gun, there is a Tibet basic like a patch that's on the back. And China said, you have to remove that or we're not going to play the movie. From what I understand is Paramount considered basically like CGIing it off. And then they said, forget it. We're not going to do that. So Top Gun Maverick never played in China. So imagine how much more money that film would have made if it played in China. A lot of sequels are greenlit over here because they do huge in China. For example, Terminator Genesis did not do well here, but it did really well in China. So then they made Terminator Dark Fate, which bombed in China, bombed in here. Now we're not going to get another Terminator movie for years. So it's all, China has a lot to do with this. So Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, did play in China. Now, this is, so its budget is, it's a little off. So there's a gross and there's a net. So the gross for its budget is 291 million. Its net is 219 million. A film normally has to make double its budget. You then also have to add on marketing, which is like another million. China takes a massive chunk of money and just keeps it for themselves. Then you also got to pay the movie theaters and all that type of stuff. So the box office that Dead Reckoning did is 567.5 million. That is not good. that is bad. And it's hard to say why. Why did this movie not resonate with people? Why was it just completely overshadowed? I mean, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, if you like it or not, for whatever reasons, should have made a buttload of money, and it didn't. I have my own reasons for not liking the film, but that's a whole other thing. But and it didn't. So it's a sequel. Mission Impossible Directing Part 1, a sequel. Maybe people are tired of sequels. All the Marvel movies are bombing. All the DC movies are bombing. Okay. You can maybe call it superhero fatigue, but they're bombing. Then Sound of Freedom makes a lot of money and just kind of comes out of the blue. Barbie, even though Barbie is known, it's not a sequel. Oppenheimer, based on a real person, not a sequel. So maybe people are just tired of sequels and reboots and superheroes and just all these different films that we've seen 1,000 times. So one of the things that I wanted to kind of look at are other movies that have like a part 1 and a part 2. And I don't mean like Friday the 13th and then Friday the 13th part 2. I'm talking about like you know, Hunger Games or Harry Potter, things like that, where they took like the very last movie and broke it into 2 parts. The thing that kind of scares me a little bit with Mission Impossible 8, Directing Part 2, is that may not even be the title. Paramount, Tom Cruise, Christopher Corey have all been incredibly quiet. And we have not heard anything except that the movie got pushed to 2025. Will they, retitle the movie? Which would be stupid, because then now they have a movie called Part 1 and they now have a movie after it that doesn't have Part 2 listed. Will they re-edit the movie and make it shorter? Maybe make it just 2 hours and 15 minutes instead of almost 3 hours. Then we're going to be missing a lot of footage. Are they reshooting things? I mean, I don't know. It's a little scary if you're, a Tom Cruise fan and a Christopher McQuarrie fan, Mission Impossible fan, that what they're going to be releasing might not be good. So let's take a look here. Basically, like the first one that has a part 2, I could be wrong about this, but I think it was the first big one, would be Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. So everybody's in Harry Potter. Everybody loves Harry Potter. And they decide to cut the ending movie into into 2 parts. So the ending, the part 2, well, its budget, this is with part 1, is 250 million. So that's parts 1 and 2. And if you look at something like Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, its budget is, it's that 219, 291. It's not really that huge of a difference as far as Hollywood numbers are concerned. So you're getting 2 Harry Potter movies and 1 Mission Impossible movie that aren't that far apart when it comes to a budget. Harry Potter made over $1 billion. So it made $1.342 billion. People still liked it. They didn't have a problem with the 1 and 2 yet. They were excited about 1 and 2. So part 2 made a lot of money. Then you have like the Hunger Games and with Mockingjay, and that one did and its budget is pretty small. It's actually, so for part 1, it's 125 to 140 million, and it made $755 755.4, so I should say 755.4 million. It made a lot of money. But when we get to part two, it's saying here that Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2 fell short of expectations at the box office. It grossed a total of 281.7 million in the United States and Canada, and 379.7 million in other countries, for a worldwide gross of 661.4 million. It is the lowest grossing film in the Hunger Games series, not counting the new one, just the Jennifer Lawrence movies. So now we're getting a little bit of fatigue with, okay, with part two. Can't we just have Mockingjay, the movie? Why do we need parts one and two? Then we come to the Divergent series, which I enjoyed quite a bit, along with like Maze Runner. I actually thought the Divergent series was better than Hunger Games. And they wanted to divide it up. They said, okay, we're going to follow Hunger Games, we're going to follow Harry Potter. And so when they brought out the last film, which would have been Allegiant, it was supposed to have a part one, which this is, and a part two. So it basically, it got the fourth film canceled. It just didn't do that well. It's saying here, okay, so in the United States and Canada, the film was projected to gross around 28 to 30 million in its opening weekend, which would make it the lowest opening among the franchise. It earned the lowest previews among the series. On opening day, it made 11.9 million. So that was 43.6% from Insurgent. So it's, and you had other films out there too, with like, you know, Chronicles of Narnia and some of these other films. Also, Allegiant also struggled internationally, and they ended up canceling part two. So we have no ending. So finally, we have Harry Potter that did great. You have Hunger Games, which did okay, but it disappointed. And then you have, you know, the Divergent series, the last film, Allegiant, just failing. And so the company is, you know, Lionsgate is saying, we're just not going to make another one. You know, so they're just like, no, we're not going to. So the film, and this is bad. So the budget on it is 110 to 142 million. It ran just over 2 hours. So it's like 2 hours and like 1 minute. Its box office is 179.2 million. That is awful. It didn't even make back its budget. So of course they're going to not make a part four. There were rumors that they were going to do a TV show, but nobody from the movies wanted to be in the TV show. And so it just stopped. So now we don't have this ending. So instead of giving us just one solid ending movie, you know, just three solid movies, they got greedy and wanted to do it in two parts and failed. And now we don't get an ending to that series. So I think if studios were to look at these movies and their progression on how we had a hit, then we had one that did okay, and then we had one that bombed, and then they looked at other films that have a part one and two, maybe we wouldn't have had you know, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning part one. So it's there's just, I do have issues with this one. I mean, he's not the greatest villain in the world. I mean, he goes around with his knife. You know, I'll give some spoilers. It's been out long enough. There, I think I did this in my review where I ranked all of them too, where I think there's something wrong with Ving Rhames. He seems to be sitting a lot, like he doesn't really walk. And so he might just be getting old. And so he has to sit a lot. Um, killing off Rebecca Ferguson in such an easy way when she is the female equivalent of Ethan Hunt. And she's probably one of the best characters, if not the best character besides Ethan Hunt in the series. And so she came in during Rogue Nation, she was in Fallout, and now she's in this. So I don't know. They do a fake out death in this with her. Maybe this is a fake out one, but I don't know. The knife stuck in her. Her eyes are open. Ethan is pretty messed up. So she's probably just dead. And I mean, there's other stuff in here which I should have watched, but I haven't. There is some deleted scenes. So, like Vanessa Kirby is really good, and you also have yeah, Haley Atwell is really good. It was Agent Carter. That's her here. But and I have a hard time pronouncing her name from Guardians of the Galaxies, but she's really good too. They're all good. Simon Pegg is good. Um, but it's just one of those things of just too much access, maybe, that the film just did not click. And now it's not going back in the box right. Let's try to do this way. There we go. So I don't know. I think convoluted plot, AI. There's some other things in it too besides Ving Rhames. Well, he just kind of disappears all of a sudden near the end. He's like, I need to go off the grid. I can't tell you where I'm going. I just need to leave. And I think he left because unless they do something great with him in part two, um, Simon Pegg, Benji has pretty much taken over that role. And originally he was just a computer nerd. And then he uh, joined the team, and now there's even in Dead Reckoning a conversation between Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames where they talk about who's better at the computer, and Ethan's like, I'm not going to get into this fight. So it's possible that they just kind of didn't have anything to do, didn't have anything for him to do. And so they moved him out. I always thought that was a little weird. Um, the AI seems to work when it wants to, according to the script. Um, why it just can't control everything, but it only controls some things when it's convenient to the script. Um, Also, you normally see in the Mission Impossible films that they will, for communication, they'll put like a little earpiece in that's kind of hidden, and you see them do it. In this one, if you they never show you that they're doing it, and um they just seem to be able to talk, and you don't see any sort of earpiece in their ears, which I thought was kind of lazy. I think that you need at least to see one person put it in. Um, there's just stuff like that. It does have some great action scenes. Um, I don't know. See, I mentioned during my ranking that because I hadn't seen this one yet, I wasn't sure where it stood. So yeah, I think it. Yeah, I don't really know where it sits. Um, and maybe that's why it didn't do that great. Is I can't really place it. If Fallout is the best, I would then say I would probably go almost backwards and maybe a toss up between Rogue Nation and Ghost Protocol. And then it would be like part three, part one, part two. So Dead Reckoning would have to fall maybe in between three and four, which would be Ghost Protocol, maybe somewhere in there. So maybe that's it. Maybe they were just too confident that it would make a lot of money, and people would get it. I mean, they've had, and this includes part two. They've had 6 great movies. Um, where it really never had to pick up speed. I mean, other franchises like the Fast and the Furious and some of these other ones, it took like to movie five, Fast Five, for it to finally really kick in. And you had to wait through four movies to get to that that one movie, part five, where all of a sudden now this is Fast and the Furious. But this didn't have that problem. So I don't think that they expected the first Mission Impossible to make as much money as it did. Cruise's ego came out for part two. And of course, he had John Woo on there. So you get a lot of doves flying around, slow mo action stuff too. Part three, which is when he was having all that weird Scientology stuff going on. And I think it was his sister who was his manager. Paramount dumped him. Paula Wagner, they dumped him. There's the weird stuff with Oprah. And then it took, even though I love part three, I think out of those original three, part three is the best. And then it took a while, and then, Ghost Protocol came out, and Jeremy Renner was possibly going to be replacing Tom Cruise. But the film did so well that, and pretty much set the tone for the rest of the series, that they kept Tom Cruise on, and then Jeremy Renner was in Rogue Nation. He's not in Fallout, and I believe that's because he was shooting one of the Avengers movies, so he couldn't be in it. And then he's not back for Dead Reckoning. But yeah, I don't know. Those are kind of some of my thoughts, and just too long. Part one, convoluted plot, maybe over marketing the stunts. We love seeing Tom Cruise flying in a plane, thanking the audience for, not even flying in a plane, he's hanging onto a plane, thanking the audience for watching, his movie. That's what he did for the thank you for Top Gun Maverick. And then there just might be too much of that. I love Tom Cruise running, but I think that, there's even a video out there that I think it's called Why Tom Cruise Running is Important, and it's analyzing him running. That maybe people are tired of that type of stuff too. So in Dead Reckoning, he does a lot of running, and I think that he's now really aware of the running thing. So I don't know. I like the movie. I've seen it, I kid you not, 5 times. I saw it twice in the theater and then 3 times on Blu-ray. And I'll watch it again probably sometime this year, and then I'll watch it again when part two comes out or whatever it's called. But yeah, those are some of my theories on why. Because if you believe in Rotten Tomatoes, it got both, critic wise and then like audience wise, it got very good reviews. And so why it just didn't do well is a little beyond me. So I guess we'll never truly know, because Paramount and Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie ain't talking about it, and I would love for them to talk about it, but they're not. So yeah. So until then, we'll really never know, and that's if they even tell us the reasons why they think, like, honestly. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching this. I do appreciate it. And I'm going to probably show some videos that of some product that I've bought recently from like Zia Records or Amazon, eBay, and I'll do some of those. And maybe I'll pick a few more topics to to talk about. Donald Wills and I will be doing later this month for film discussion. We are going to be talking about the Rambo movies, all 5 of those, and I'm going to see if I could find the like at least one episode of the cartoon to talk about that also. So there's definitely stuff coming up, and I got a really good one filmmaker coming up. I really hope you guys like it. This is a bucket list filmmaker for me, and he did one of my all-time favorite action movies, and it's from Warner Brothers. So I actually have a director from Warner Brothers coming on. So hopefully you'll like that. So, all right, everybody, thank you. I really appreciate you watching. Maybe comment down below, just down below that your theories on why it didn't do that well. And please don't just write like it sucks. That doesn't help anybody. And it didn't, by the way. So just just maybe give your theories on why, but just be, don't be rude about it. So okay, so I will talk to you soon. Thank you for watching again, and I'll talk to you on the next video. Okay, bye.